There are so many kids, so many young kids, I think 4 to 8, 9 year, maybe even a little bit older. They are mouth breathing. And yesterday I was with my niece. I saw her sleeping at 9. She was also mouth breathing. I almost wanted to kind of take a tape and put, but I was scared too. Like, what do you have to say to the parents and to educators which are working with kids that are mouth breathing? What kind of effect does it have? Because we keep complaining about the children, they are not focused, it's the technology. I mean, they don't have any concentration, they forget things what we tell, but it's also partly breathing, as far as what I understood just now.
Yes, there's no question. And none of this is new information. There was a study that was conducted in Stratford upon Avon that was published in the journal Pediatrics. And the researcher is Karen Bonuck, Bonuck. She looked at 11,000 British school children. And she looked at children with sleep issues such as snoring, stopping of the breath, and mouth breathing. She concluded that children with sleep issues at age 5, if untreated, had a 40% increased risk of special education needs by age 8. The brain develops during slow wave sleep. If the child is breathing in and out through the nose with good breathing patterns, that they don't have sleep disorders, they're more likely to stay in slow wave sleep for longer periods of time, and this assists with development of the brain. So the unfortunate thing here is that society isn't aware of the impact of mouth breathing on the health of the child, and society isn't aware of the impact of mouth breathing on the long-term health. So I was one of those kids in school, and I really struggled. If you have poor sleep, waking up tired, as you described earlier on, you don't have the energy and focus to pay attention to what the teacher is saying. But also your mood is impacted. And these kids are not only, they can be inattentive, but they can be considered then troublesome. So
Yes.
society is putting a label on these kids. They're not intelligent. They're hard work, but nobody is looking at their sleep. It's really high time that the healthcare professionals, including the dentists and the medical doctors, the physiotherapists, the occupational therapists, and all of the disciplines that work with these children, that they start paying attention to whether the child is breathing through the nose, how are they breathing during sleep, how is their airway, do they have tongue tie, and all of these are factors, because these children are not going to reach their full potential if they're hanging their mouths open. And the estimates, well, it's not even estimates, studied children, the incidence of mouth breathing in studied children ranges from between 25% to 50%. It's quite a lot. From a moral and an ethical point of view, we need to be teaching children the importance of breathing in and out through the nose, with the tongue resting up in the roof of the mouth. Like, there's another side to this, is orthodontics.
Yeah.
Children who are mouth breathing have crooked teeth. Now, I went in on PubMed yesterday, and any of the parents listening to this can do the same. PubMed is a national database, the US database of pretty much most scientific and medical papers that are published or stored in this database. Do a search, mouth breathing, malocclusion. Malocclusion is crooked teeth. It will bring up about 700 papers. Go through those papers. And mouth breathing, you will always see associated with malocclusion. Now, okay, you could say, well, that doesn't necessarily mean that mouth breathing is causing malocclusion, but people in the field are saying it is. So if we have a child with their mouth open, the tongue isn't resting up in the roof of the mouth. And as a result, the jaws, the maxilla, which is the top jaw, is narrower and V-shaped. There's not enough room then for the tongue, teeth are crooked. But then the problem is that the tongue is more likely to encroach the airway, and the child is susceptible to sleep issues. Because the tongue hasn't been resting up in the roof of the mouth, the child may have a high, narrow palate. Their palate now is infringing the nasal cavity. They don't feel comfortable breathing through the nose. Their face is growing longer, their jaws are set back, and this is an absolute disaster. And the dental profession have been debating this for 100 years.
It's actually a shame that we don't have in the schooling system, at least in the Netherlands and in Europe, that we don't we teach maths, we teach science, we teach whatever, literacy, grammar, art. We don't have any meditation or breath work, or like where we can learn breathing techniques. How do you really breathe better? Like, I had a parent, she said, like, one of the students that has focus problems, she said, like, this is what I've been hearing for all her life. But what is the solution? What is the solution? No one knows.
Child has
And
sleep problems. The child has sleep issues,
yeah, yeah.
Go in on YouTube and put in search term finding Conor Deegan. Deegan. And I was presenting at a conference in the States going back quite a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago. It was presented by the American Academy of Physiological Medicine and Dentistry, the AAPMD. Conor Deegan was there. His parents put a video together. Okay, it's one case, but it's only an example of what parents are having to go through. Their children are struggling. I struggled. I left school at 14 years of age. The first time I wrote about it was in the book Atomic Focus. I did go back to school. I didn't leave school to be a waster. I left school out of a total sense of frustration. I was a child sitting there, and it was absolutely pointless me being sitting there. I was sitting there with brain fog, couldn't pick up anything. And all it was doing is setting me back and giving me the label at that point that I was a stupid kid. I didn't have the intelligence that the other kids would have. So I left, and my goal was to become a supermarket manager. And that's what I was doing. And my goal eventually then was to be a shop owner. That's what I wanted to do. But I went back to school 1 year later. I studied hard, and I was very driven, and I got the results, but I was studying for 10 and 12 hours per day. It could have been a lot easier. It would be tremendous to see the education system bringing in functional breathing, simple ideas, simple techniques that can be provided to children.
And for parents with kids, they have learned a lot. What you just have told about the way the kids breathe and what it does with them, for their brain. If there's one practice or one exercise they could do with their kids, either it is like taping their mouth while sleeping, either something else, what could that be?
With children, it's very important to establish that the child can actually breathe through their nose, first of all. There's a very simple technique to help decongest the nose. You take a normal breath in and out through your nose, you pinch your nose and hold, and you gently nod your head up and down, holding the breath. You'll find this exercise on YouTube. And then during the day, what I would suggest is that you use a tape, especially if the child has got chronic mouth breathing. Now, we have our own tape called Myo tape, and it's an elasticated tape that surrounds the lips to bring it together. We have the child wear it when they are distracted, when they're watching television, if they're doing homework, if they're playing with toys, etc. And the purpose of the tape is that because it's elasticated, if the child forgets to breathe through the nose and they open their mouth, the tape will pull their lips together and it will bring them back to nose breathing. So instead of the mom or dad saying, breathe through your nose, breathe through your nose, breathe through your nose, because that sounds like a broken record after a while, the child is wearing the tape for 15 minutes to 30 minutes per day. And every time they forget about breathing through the nose, the tape will remind them. Then when the child is able to breathe in and out through the nose safely, and the child is over 4 or 5 years of age, more so 5 years of age, then we will consider myotape during sleep. So, and the best exercise then to help with the long term is, we call it the steps exercise or paces exercise. And that's also available free on YouTube. And it will be in the app. It's currently in the Buteco Clinic app, but it will be also in the Oxygen Advantage app.